guys, so today we're going to talk about 4 different types of government. The first one that we're going to talk about is an oligarchy, and I'll spell it out for you guys in the notes after. But an oligarchy is when there's more than one person in power. It's usually 2 or 3. They're always wealthy, high class nobles that are considered, important in society. But there are more than one. There's more than one leader in charge, and the idea is that they sort of collaborate to make decisions and things like that. Which sounds like a great idea, right? Well, what always happens when there's a group of 3 people? If you're working on a group project or something like that, what typically happens within the group? One person usually does what? Okay. So usually one person kind of takes over, takes that leadership role sort of thing. And eventually what happens when you have 3 people in power is someone gets greedy. And over time the other 2 are somehow eliminated or phased out, whether or they find a way to kind of get that, and it always ends up with one person in power. Always. The second type of government that we're going to talk about is a monarchy. England has, you've heard of probably, Prince William and Princess Kate and all this kind of stuff. They have a monarchy. It's not exactly like what we're going to talk about, but technically they do have a queen. A monarchy is when there is a king or queen, one person in power, who gains power through birthright, meaning that the king's son is the next king. His son is the next king. His son is the next king. It's a bloodline thing. And so the idea behind that is to be able to cement your power, because this bloodline is so strong that, it's lasted for all these generations and you are royalty. So it's harder for someone to sort of come in and take over because that foundation is already built.
They see me rolling, they hating.
The third, again, there's one person in power, but this is called a tyranny or a tyranny. You can pronounce it either way. That's where there's one person in power. They could be an emperor, king, whatever, and they get power by force. So we're going to talk about Rome in the next unit, and Julius Caesar, who came in and with his army, and sorry, I'm your new leader. You will accept that, or there's consequences. Typically, we think of a tyranny as like Hitler or Joseph Stalin, if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, as generally a bad thing. A dictatorship is another kind of word for it. They're a little bit different, but somebody who is cruel, that sort of thing. Not always the case. Julius Caesar was not a cruel ruler. The people loved him. He gave to the poor. Again, other people got jealous, and I'll tell you that cool story in the next unit. So tyranny, one person in power takes power by force. The last one that we're going to talk about is a democracy, which you should all have heard of, and that is where power is in the hands of the people. So there are different types of democracy. We have what's called a representative democracy. But back then, in the time of Greece, a democracy was when everyone voted their leader on the laws, all that kind of stuff. So in Athens, we're going to talk about Athens and Sparta. In Athens, they had a democracy where everyone voted. And then in Sparta, they had what's called an oligarchy, which of course eventually evolves into a monarchy. So those are the 4 different types of government. So I want you guys to do the handout where it tells you about the different types of government, and then turn that in. So that's your activity for the day. And then I will post an information sheet with the definitions on there, because hint, these might be some of your vocab words for next week.